Well, hello everybody and welcome to NMS introduction video. This is a crash course video. We're going to be diving deep into how to create custom entities, and I'll also in the process I'll explain what NMS is. So by the end of this video you are gonna have a monster that looks like it's friendly, but if I go into survival he'll actually start to kill me, knock me down. There we go. So welcome to this crash course video. Let me just go into adventure or creative mode so he doesn't kill me. Now, what are we going to cover today? I'm going to be explaining what NMS or OBC, which not a lot of people know, is, and I'm going to be giving you an illustrated example of it. Then we're going to be talking about the best and the fastest way to start using NMS in your plugin on top of Spigot and Paper. And then I'll explain the difference because there's different mappings. We have Spigot mappings, we have Mojang mappings, so what they are. However, we're not going to be speaking about Mojang's mappings in this video because I do not want this video to be, 90 minutes long. So we're going to have another video just for Mojang's mappings. In this video, we're going to be using Spigot mappings. And by the way, if you're using 1.8 or any older Minecraft release, good news, I'll be covering all because there was a change in Minecraft 1.17, I think. So I'm going to be covering the old way and also the new way of NMS. And then at the end, of course, I'm going to give you the bonus, which you have seen in the intro, Custom Entity AI. And this is actually taken from one of my premium plugins, Winter, where we use custom entity using a pathfinder that is connected to Minecraft using NMS. So without any further ado, let me just open up my board of justice and let me start illustrating what this is. So as I explained in, I think, episode 1, in this free YouTube tutorial series. By the way, guys, if you haven't seen this, please watch it. It's just going to make so much sense. So pause this video, complete episode 1, and then return back. So we have something called Minecraft, or let's say I'm just going to call it vanilla. And then this is basically a bunch of code from the company behind the game. So this is basically from the company called Mojang, right? The problem with this code is that there is no plugin support, no PL, no plugin support. So a bunch of people came together and then they formed a project called Bukkit, right? This was just a bunch of coders that took the code behind vanilla, and then they've added more stuff on it, including support for plugins. Likewise, Bukkit was abandoned in 2014. So just like that, after a conflict, after some drama, I don't have to cover this. And then there was another pile of developers behind the project called Spigot that started to, they took the code of Bukkit, which took the code of vanilla, and then Spigot developers just started to tamper on top of it, right? So they started to edit, modify, and improve that code. Likewise, there was another group, and then they started to develop something called as paperspigot. Nowadays, it's only called paper. And so today you basically have just these two branches, right? So this is active, Spigot is still active, although it is declining in popularity in favor of paper, because that one is the easiest to get and also provides the most customization features as well as the best performance. So we've got these two, and every single one of these leads back to vanilla. Now in Java, if you don't know what Java is, I really urge you to check out the course below. It's called NMS Advanced or Project Orient, does not really matter. We're going to teach you the entire Java framework so that you know how to code Minecraft plugins. And without understanding Java, this is not going to make any sense. But basically in Java, you have classes that are stored in a different package, right? So if I open up my, If I open up my Winter premium plugin, you can see we have a bunch of packages, right? And then the vanilla code is actually located in a package called net.minecraft. And as you can see, we have paper 1.20, and the packages looks like this: net.minecraft.commands, core, data, etc., etc. Now, the Bukkit code is stored in another package called org.bukkit. I don't think you can see it right here because I'm just using Luton to decompile the actual, the patched jar file, and I'll explain what that is. So you can't see it here because you can see something called craft bukkit, which I'll explain in a moment, but basically Bukkit builds on top of that and it connects into vanilla. So what NMS is, just for the explanation to be complete, is simply the stuff that is inside the package called net.minecraft and everything right here is inside NMS. If you have an older version, such as 1.8, it looks like this one. Basically, it is crammed into a single package, and at the end of the package, we have a versioning prefix. The versioning prefix has been used since 1.4 until 1.16 and has been abandoned in 1.17. Now, the latest 1.20 still uses versioning prefix, although it is only used in the craft bukkit package. Now, the question is, how does bukkit connect to vanilla, right? That's a great question. So the way bukkit connects, and likewise, paper connects to Spigot, and Spigot connects to bukkit, and bukkit connects to vanilla. So how does that work? Let me just focus on this connection because these two is practically the same as bukkit. How does bukkit connect to vanilla? Well, you have, and I'm just going to go into any project, and I'm just going to create a demo package. So we have net.minecraft.entity, right? And inside of which you have something called entity player. And then you have a void called A. Now, the problem with NMS is that these things are obfuscated, which means that they are encrypted, because Mojang wanted to hide their intellectual property from developers, right? So unfortunately, the problem with NMS is that many of these methods are just called gibberish, and you don't understand what these do. Let's say that this A method takes in a string, and it does something called, it calls a method called B, which takes in a packet, and it actually sends it to the player. So if you want to, let me just illustrate this. This method, for example, sends the message to the player. So we're going to call B new packet chat, or play in chat, or whatever it's called nowadays. I think it's just called something else. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to give you this as an illustration. So you got packet chat, and inside of which I'm just going to place the message. Now, I explained in the first video in the series that the way Minecraft communicates is between the server and between the players, the clients, is using packets, which is simply a byte array with all the different points of data, with all the different data types, which are being sent. So this can be a string, this can be a message, right? This can be a location of another player, this can be a location of an entity, etc., etc. I'm not going to cover packets in this video. I think I already covered them twice throughout this series. We have a special video just on packets, and then I covered them briefly in the first episode. So please, guys, I urge you to check that out. So back to this. We have a package in NMS called entity player, right? And this one calls A. Now, there is no way for this to connect into plugin, right? You don't have any plugin support. There's no way to call the say, what do we have? Async player chat event, right? Because, you know, NMS does not really support events. So what developers did, they either took this code and they edited it so that they placed this event right here on top of it, and then they marked it, for example, bukkit start at the start, bukkit end, and you'll see this if you browse the source code of it. However, the way that they connect it into what you are using in your own plugin, if I open up any listener and I go into winter listener, for example, no. Any melting listener, no. Chess listener, so here you're getting the player. Let me just rename this for simplicity, for visibility. So you're going to get the player, and this player interface is completely empty. It doesn't do anything. If I try to find send message, you can see it goes to Spigot, that send message, but it doesn't really do anything. These methods are completely empty. So the way that bukkit connects with NMS is they have created sort of like a middleman layer, and this is called, let me just create a package for this, org.bukkit.craftbukkit, right? And inside of which you don't have a player class, but you have something called craft player class, and this one actually stores the entity player and it calls it a handle. So the craft thing, it works like a bridge because this one implements the player interface, and so here you actually have the method called send message, and what it does, it'll connect to the handle. It's going to connect to the NMS, and then it's going to send the message. So this works like a bridge. And let me just show this to you as an illustrated example, as I promised. So we have Luton 1.20, and we have the org.craftbukkit.entity, and then we have craft player. And okay, so this is going to be really, really big, but if you stick with me, hopefully we can find it. So we have somewhere here should be the handle. Let me just search for send message. Where is that? Okay, this is getting complicated. Send raw message. Okay, send raw message. Right. So this one apparently sends a message to a given sender, and then you see it's going to get the handle. It's going to check something, which God knows what is, and then it's going to actually create a specific message component, which is very similar to the Adventure API, although Adventure is developed independently, and then this chat-based component is developed by Mojang. We have a video on Adventure you can check out. So this is basically going to take your plain message and turn it into something that can contain interactive events such as click and hover. Again, we have a video just on that. It's going to get the handle, and then hopefully if this will open, you can see what this will do. It's going to create a new packet, a chat packet, right? And then you can just send this to the player. Obviously, it works a little bit more complicated, as you can see, but that's all you need to understand this concept. So again, guys, just to make sure that you understand it clearly, the NMS is the code from the company behind Minecraft. It doesn't support plugins, so that Bukkit, Spigot, Paper builds on top of it. And then the way that they connect into it is by using craft classes, which implement the API from Bukkit, such as player. These craft classes are always prefixed by craft, such as craft player, etc., craft zombie, and then they simply have the NMS as a handle, and then they connect to it, and they perform these different actions, right? And you can see in the craft player that basically everything right here is just according to the player interface. I think in the most recent versions, you pretty much have access to a lot of NMS. So the question is, why should anybody use NMS if it looks like this, if it's garbage and it's encrypted? Well, the problem with Bukkit, and the problem is that essentially, effectively, they have to copy every single method that is in NMS in order to provide you with the same features, the same access to them. Do they do that? Of course not. And there is a lot of things in NMS that are not possible in Spigot API. I think for the longest time, one of these things were custom monsters pathfinders. So it was not possible to use Bukkit to add custom behaviors to any monster. In fact, right now in my plugin Winter, we still use NMS to do that because it's the fastest and the easiest way. But I wanted to say, if you're using Paper, I think Paper has added custom pathfinders. So, you know, just to clear up if someone's going to comment below, hey, but I know Paper has it. So Paper is really good at like catching up and duplicating a lot of stuff from NMS so that it provides a really nice bridge. However, especially if you're coding for 1.8 or any older version, you may find Bukkit quite lacking, so you may rely on NMS more. All right, so that's it. Now, let me explain what mappings are. If you have these methods, such as the handle A, right, or B, or A, whatever. So mappings simply mean that they map, they change, they rename these garbages into something that is more readable. Now, Bukkit or Spigot has developed over the years a good sense for what these methods do because they spend so much time into it, and they simply created their own mappings so that if you open up NMS, if you open up the entity player, you'll actually see that some of these methods are actually renamed already. Yeah, so for example, you can see this one, map counts, display name, right? But you can see that most of them are still not renamed. So this is because I'm using Spigot mappings. And if you go into the server, let me just, not Eclipse, please. Okay, let me go into my test server. So if I go to 1.20, the way that I opened up this patch is actually you have to go into versions and then look up here. If you're using Minecraft older than I think 1.17, no, 1.17 still has the cache. So you're gonna want to open up the patched file to explore NMS, and then 1.16 has the same structure. It also has the patched file. So what I wanted to say, Spigot developed, custom remappings that they are applying in this code. However, I think a couple of years ago, Mojang released their own mappings, the original names, and now developers can choose between which one they want to use. The biggest downside using Mojang mappings is that legally you cannot use them for production, but, give me a face slap. Why do they even release them then? But You can use Spigot mappings for production for making your plugins. So if you want to use Mojang mappings, please follow the next video, and I'm going to show you how to connect your plugins to the remapped version of this, so that these names are a little bit different. They are coming from Mojang, not from Spigot, and they are the original names. But when you are compiling your plugin using Maven, you have to change it back into Spigot, which is kind of confusing under the surface. However, thankfully, Spigot has provided us with nice scripts that'll automate this process for us. So in the next video, I'll show you how to work with Mojang mappings. Why should you? Well, because more things, everything pretty much is deobfuscated. It is readable. However, the biggest downside is the legal stuff. You cannot really use it. You can only use it during development. And then when you're compiling and exporting your plugin, you have to use a script to decompile it back, recompile it back. And the second downside is that they tend to change more frequently, and Spigot mappings tend to be more stable. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I think 16 minutes has passed and we've covered a good chunk of NMS. Let me know in the comments if you need better explanation for anything. I'll be happy to do so. And then at the end, well, there's two more things that I want to cover: how to import NMS and then the example. So how to actually import NMS. We go into our POM file, and the way that I simply import NMS nowadays is as a system path dependency. And I know probably, you know, some people will scream at me because they're using the remapped version. It doesn't work this way, and you don't like, and people don't like using the system path, but it is the fastest way, and you can import different dependencies this way. So we have in winter support for 1.7, 8, 12, 16, etc. However, then I simply had to make a hard decision whether I'm going to keep this system or not, because if you try to import 1.17, 18, 19, 20 and upwards, you'll see that these imports right here, they do not contain the versioning prefix as these older ones. So let me just show you how that works. So if you want to work with NMS below 1.17, it's actually very easy because everything here is isolated. But if you try to import 1.17 and higher, you'll see that these things are not isolated, and then it can just cause massive conflicts for you as a developer inside the IntelliJ. You can see even IntelliJ freaks out right now because I'm having Eclipse open and probably there's some access issue, but that one works, the class works. This is the exact same copy that I'm using in my production plugin. So how to import NMS? I do recommend checking the APIs and libraries video, because essentially I'll explain, you know, the dependency management there. But the basic just, you're going to want to have it as any other Maven dependency, simply leading to a path. So this path can be, if you're having a test server in this folder, you're going to want to go into version here, and then copy the full path to this file and place it in the system path. That's it. Don't forget to reload and re-import your project. Whatever you have in group ID, artifact, version, does not matter, as long as these three are unique and compared to the other dependencies, they have to be unique. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I don't know why IntelliJ is complaining today, but if you do this, if you re-import it, it is going to work. I promise, pinky swear. If you check the APIs video, you'll understand how that works. So I also recommend you check out that one. I mean, at this point, I pretty much recommended at least 3 videos, because I think it's better to have a shorter video rather than having 3 hours long video that people are having resistance to watching. So that's how we import NMS. And then as a bonus in this video, I just want to show you what we have in winter. Let me just get rid of these packages right here because we don't really need them. And the way that I created a custom entity is I simply created a new class. I called it psychomap 1.20, and I made it extend the entity Snowman inside the NMS package. Okay, so if you do that, you should end up with a simple class like this. However, what it requires is a default constructor, and then we can start overriding the custom monsters behavior. So in my constructor, I simply figure out by looking at the entity Snowman what is inside the constructor, and then I simply figure out that the entity types is an enum. And if you open this, if you decompile it, and you try to using your common sense, which please guys, always, you have to decompile and try to use your common sense, we can find that, okay, this is not an enum, but this holds the Snowman type. Because basically the constructor just tries to ask for what the entity is. So I typed, so I place the field there, and then the second if I look into the old constructor, as you can see, it requires a world. And the way I got the world is simply by the location, get the world, and then you can cast it to craft world. Remember, because the world actually is implemented by craft world. And we know, as I explained, that this is going to contain the handle, which returns the actual world server, which is a class from Mojang, from NMS. So this is apparently what it needs. And then these are just some bonuses. So I set the position using set post raw, which apparently is just going to take in the bukkit location. And then this is actually the custom behavior. So B0BP, it appears to be pathfinder goal, and then one appears to be pathfinder target. Guys, I'm not expert. No one besides Mojang employees is an expert in this. So what you can do, you can simply open up a class that behaves sort of like you want your mob to behave, for example, zombie. And then if you open up zombie class, you'll see that it has this one as a pathfinder. No, where is that? Okay, so apparently it registers these pathfinders here. And it also registers them right here. And the priority is the first number. So I literally just copy paste a couple of pathfinders right here, and I set them to have pretty high priority. So first one is melee attack. And then this one is, I think, intensity or something. And the true, I have to be honest, I don't know what that is, but it works. So, I'm happy. And then we want to attack. We want to target entity human, which is also an NMS class. So we want to attack all entity humans. Hopefully you know at least a little bit how that works. And also my plugin has the option to remove pumpkin from the entity's head. And I just figured out that this is called W. And the way I figured it out is simply I saw that it contains has pumpkin right here. And also sometimes the way you're going to figure things out is by looking at NBT tags right here. So look for NBT and you can see the different data that is being saved. And then this one is the getter. So the R stands for has pumpkin. And then the W, you're going to see this right here when we're saving the NBT tag, the persistent data container. I do have a video on persistent data containers, I believe. So you can check that out as well. And when we're saving it, it'll simply set it right here using the W. So this is how you use common sense when it's not very common practice, and you will figure a lot of stuff out. And then I simply use bukkit to set it metadata temporarily that this is a deadly snowman to do some extra behavior, namely when we're loading the event. There's some custom behavior in winter when it comes to spawning these monsters. So I just want to make sure that I do not overload the server. And then I can actually, again, I get the world, get the handle of the world. And then I figure out that the way you spawn using NMS is simply called add fresh entity. And then it simply needs this, and then it needs a custom spawning reason for why this has been called. So that's pretty much it. This is going to work. If I just call this on its own and I call new psychomob on a given location where I'm going to spawn it, this is going to work because the spawning is actually called right here in a constructor. Now, I wasn't happy with this. So what I wanted to do, I wanted to change this mob to have custom sounds. And I just figured out that the sound effect has these three methods. First one being the ambient sound when the mob walks around. The other one being when the mob takes damage. The third one, I think, being when the mob dies. And again, you can just open up the sound effects class. I know I said again, but for you, it might be the first time. So the way that I found this out is just going into entity Snowman, searching for sound, and just doing a nice search. And you can see that the original sounds are right here. And then I simply saw that it was calling something in the sound effects class. And if I open up this one, now you can simply read the names right here because these are not obfuscated. So if I want to change, say, I want to change the damage sound to wither, I simply search for wither, entity wither hurt, and I simply type in capital A and then B right here, and it should work, right? Or AF, wither skeleton. That's one thing. So you can just override methods to override the monster's behavior. Now, I also notice in the entity Snowman, there is a method called A, which I think, is this one, So this one basically targets the entity and it shoots the snowball at the entity. So I just took this method because obviously, guys, you're not going to be able to figure this out. Most likely, this is just calculating the vector position so it hits the target correctly. So I copied this and I place it right here. And the only thing that I changed right here is the A, which I saw that it's calling WT, which says, okay, so I can't apparently see it, but doesn't really matter. I know that it simply says that the snowman is shooting. This is the sound. So I simply changed the sound to entity.shulker.shoot, just for the fun of it. And then if you want to spawn it the way that we spawn it in Winter, since we have support for multiple Minecraft versions, we simply check whatever Minecraft version it is. If it's 1.20, we spawn it using new. 1.16 the same, and then 1.12 is a bit more complicated. You actually have to register the entity as well as for 1.8. I'm not going to cover this because you can just Google this on how to create custom entities for these older versions, right? But basically very similar, and then we simply call a new psycho mob here. That's pretty much it. The way that you can alter the psycho mob actually behavior, I think when it comes to snowman deal damage event right here. So I'd simply listen to projectile launch event and then hit event. I simply store the launched projectile. If if the shooter is a snowman, and I actually don't check if the shooter is custom entity snowman, which you can learn more on how to accomplish if you see the persistent metadata video, I believe, that we have here for free. And then, I simply create a link. By the way, this code looks a bit different because I'm using a custom library, and this is a premium plugin Winter, so I'm not covering this code throughout this training. So it's just a bonus. I did not intended originally to show this to you, but people were curious, why not? So simply I created a bridge between the launch event and the hit event. And then if the store snowball is coming from any snowman, I simply get the hit entity, and then what do? I set the hit entity health until I hit 0, and then it means that the hit entity is dead. I also play a bunch of sounds. And the reason we use so much comp and so much remain stuff, like we have libraries for everything, it's just compatibility, because if you want to code for 1.7, 1.8, 1.20, you'll be crazy making it on your own. So we actually created a library called Foundation, which you can see on my GitHub. And they'll basically make it very easy for you to code using one call for multiple Minecraft versions. So that is it for NMS in this video. In the next one, I'll show you how to use Mojang mappings. And if you want to learn more about NMS, we have a class called NMS Advanced, which not only shows you this pathfinding stuff, but it's also going to teach you animations. It'll teach you hypixel scenes, rotating chests and spawning custom items, holograms, a whole bunch of great stuff, even if you've never used NMS before. And the best of all, I'm on there twice per week to provide personalized help. So if you want to learn more about NMS, check the class below. I'll leave the link in the video description, and I hope to see you guys in the next video very soon. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you enjoy videos like this. I try to make about 1 to 3 videos every single week related to Minecraft, just to make it fun, but I really appreciate if you would subscribe to this channel, because it's just going to help me motivate myself and do more stuff like that. Thank you so much, and take care.